And then as well, every single day I tried my best. As long as I do that, then this next year's great. That's the Misogi. It's like, can I make today the greatest day ever? Because if today is the greatest day ever, it'll be the greatest week ever, the greatest month, the greatest year, the greatest decade, the greatest life. And that's what I want to live.
If you guys didn't already know, this is the 250th episode of the Athletes Podcast today, featuring Wyatt Moss, one of the many men that I am inspired by every single day, particularly with his ability to run a marathon every single week. Basically, 50 marathons across 50 states during the year of 2024, who's now running 7 marathons in 7 days across 7 different continents. Can you believe this? I can, mainly because I also myself did a marathon this past year. No big deal. I consumed a ton of Diesel Protein, who's our sponsor for the Athletes Podcast here. That being Perfect Sports Supplements. They provide protein powders, Hydro Splash, creatine, glutamine, every single supplement that you need to perform your best. I use Diesel every single day. It's 110 calories per scoop. You get 27 grams of protein and so many other amazing nutrients. And it's informed choice, which, as you folks know, is important as an athlete to make sure that you're putting in high quality nutrients into your body. So without further ado, let's get to the man that is Wyatt Moss and learn more about his story. Thanks for tuning in. Here we go. You're the most decorated racquetball player in U.S. history. World's strongest man. From childhood passion to professional athlete. 8-time Ironman champion. So what was it like making your debut in the NHL? What is your biggest piece of advice for the next generation of athletes? From underdogs to national champions. This is the Athletes Podcast, where high-performance individuals share their triumphs, defeats, and life lessons to educate, entertain, and inspire the next generation of athletes. Here we go. The exact kind of energy we want to bring on the Athletes Podcast, Wyatt Moss. This is the 250th episode of the show, and today we are celebrating the individual who completed 50 marathons in 50 states. What the heck are we talking about here today, Wyatt Moss? How the heck were you able to accomplish this? What the heck's going on? Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I don't even know. I think at the start of the year it was just a crazy thing that I was like, all right, let me just go see if I can do it. And it still hasn't hit me that oh, we did that.
Yeah, just casually.
Almost a month ago was number 50 in Hawaii. And so coming fresh off of it, still, it's going to take me 2 or 3 years to process, wow.
But you documented the whole thing.
Yeah. So that's, actually, I posted about it on my story last night. I've been, a lot has happened since I finished number 50. And so then there's been this weird, I haven't been able to do the recap, but as well, I'm having to transition into this next series at the same time. And then there's certain things I have to do for the next series that I have lowered engagement and stuff like that. So all right, when I posted last night on my story, I was I'm just going to cut everything and just get back to the roots and do the 50-day recap. And then while I'm leading up to this next series, the 7 continents in 7 days. So it's a storm over here.
Yeah, but it's a storm that's brewing, and you seem to be gaining a ton of momentum. Obviously, just from the social media stats alone, you go from 10K to 100 plus K. But how's the body feeling, man? Because I ran the Toronto Waterfront Marathon back, what was it, October, and it took me a couple weeks to recover from that. And you're doing this day every week for a year straight, dude. Tell me what the heck you were doing. Was it ketone IQ all day, every day, or what?
So I do take 2 of them at the start of every race. There were some where I didn't take them just to compare times and everything like that. Others where I only took ketones. And we can get into that in just a second. But body's holding up. Ankles are the main pinch point, I guess. My Achilles on my right foot was really messed up over the summer. Both of my ankles, all the tendons surrounding them are not necessarily the strongest right now. So that's the only thing that I'm worried about in going into this next year. I think I'm still going to run 24 marathons this year. So and that's the thing though, is it sounds crazy to say that, right? And it is a little bit crazy. But at the same time, you have people who are training to run their first marathon who are doing 20-mile runs during their training week after week. And so is it really that crazy to run an extra 6 miles? If you think about it, you'll do a training run for 18 miles. The next day you'll do like 3 or 4, maybe 1 or 2 after that. Like that's a marathon over 3 days. So it's a little bit different to do it all at once, week after week. But I do think that more people have it in them than they, would like to believe.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It took me, I started training really heavily in May, did a half marathon in July, and then did the full in October. And like to your point, you do a couple of those training sessions that are a little longer. It's basically nearing a marathon. I have a buddy, Satch Lottie here in BC, who was running a marathon a day for 40 days straight. He's training to run cross Canada this year, which will be like 67 kilometers a day or something crazy for you Americans down there, a little less in the miles. But yeah, ridiculous numbers. And I try and wrap my head around these feats because I've talked to 250 plus incredible human beings, high performers, athletes. And to your point, the body becomes accustomed and is resilient. But dude, like you're only 22, 23, you're a young buck. Do you worry about what the body's going to look like 10 years from now?
I think this is the time to do it. If I did it down the road, I think there would definitely be a lot more injuries and everything like that. Right now is the time where I actually have the ability to recover week after week. So maybe it's not the case that everyone could run one every single week for an entire year. But, there's a lady who's like, I think she's 67 over in, I think Germany or something like that, who just ran a marathon every day for, all of 2024. And so then I see that and I'm like, all right, like, it's possible. I think everyone can get there. I really do believe though. It comes down to like that mindset of, am I willing to start, and then as well like, what length am I gonna give up or like give myself an excuse? So it's you go on this path and you're training for something, and then something happens. Like, oh man, I injured my foot. Are you gonna let that take hold of your story, or are you gonna like not let yourself fall to an excuse and keep moving forward? It's like, despite this happening, I'm still gonna figure out a way. I think that's what gets most people, because this, 67 years old, running a marathon every day for an entire year, that's crazy. I can probably push through the pain that I'm in and strengthen it, get back on the field, everything like that. So, wait, let's just circle back real quick. Congratulations on 250 episodes. Once a week for 5 years is incredible. That is something that no one gets past their first episode. A lot of people don't even ever press record. The fact that you started recording this podcast before podcasting was really big, that's huge.
Thank you. I think I was probably around your age when I was starting this thing, and I wasn't running a marathon per week, but I did realize that building a community, building a network, scaling communication skills are all going to be beneficial long term. You and I both have the benefit of being younger individuals, so to your point, as you lay that foundation, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we're going to be doing some pretty damn incredible things, right? And it's going to be exciting as you see the progress. A couple of weeks ago, we had Erin Routliffe on, who's number 2 tennis player in the world in the doubles category. And, we had her on 4 years prior, and her goal was to become top 40. 2 years later, she did that. 2 years later, she's top 2, was number 1 at one point. And it's like, those are the cool things that you get to see over time, the progressions year over year. Even myself physically, 5 years ago, I couldn't run 5 minutes. And, now we run a 3:54 marathon and hopefully sub 3:30 at some point. Maybe we'll have to connect. What was your favorite marathon over the 50 states? I mean, you slept outside the start line in Missoula. You were ripping through a rack of ribs one marathon, Omaha overalls. What was the most memorable for you?
New York City is the cop-out answer because, largest marathon in the world. I didn't have a race entry 4 days out. Somehow got in, and then, got to start with the first 25 runners of the race. So then out of 50,000 people, I'm there running through the streets, with an Olympic runner, Alexi Pappas, for an hour and a half with no one there. And then I got to see everyone run past me. So probably about half of the runners ran past, because the day before I was running in Maryland. So that was a back-to-back weekend.
Toast.
So I ran like a 5-hour marathon for New York City. And, a lot of people will see that and be like, oh man, you should, if you're running 50 marathons, you should be going like sub 3 by now. One of the phrases that I've been using is that it's not the time, it's the distance. So if you go run a marathon, props to you. 1% of the world ever does it, or less than 1% of the world probably. does it, but 1% of Americans, whatever it is.
Hmm.
So just to even get started and then to do the distance, put in the volume, that's something to be proud of. And that one was really fun. Utah was probably the most beautiful. I'll be going back this year. There's like a series of 4 downhill marathons, and I'm talking through with the race directors. We might have something cooking to do some type of challenge with all 4 of those. Just Revel is the company, so I would recommend doing a downhill race because as well, it is a lot more fun. You get to cruise downhill, through a canyon of some mountains. You get to see the sunrise when you're at the peak and everything like that. So it's absolutely crazy.
We filmed an episode on the side of a mountain in Utah with Tommy Lawley, a baseball player. One of my buddies who I billeted with, he was actually playing. I was the intern down with the Corvallis Knights in the West Coast Baseball League. But I was trying to remember what that mountain was. Snowbead, Snow Valley, something like that. Anyway, sick view. Utah, super underrated. Zion Park, unbelievable. One of the most incredible places in the world.
That's the thing that most people don't understand about the U.S. If you live up in the Northeast and you're because like a large part of the population lives on like the East Coast or West Coast, everywhere in between is just absolutely beautiful. No one understands that we have like every continent, a taste of every continent inside of the United States. And I think it's just really cool to live in a country where we literally are like a fourth of the world.
Yeah.
With our population being so low, like, I don't know, we really have it good here because there's not too many people everywhere all the time. There's incredible like architecture. There's incredible places to visit. So any type of 50 states challenge, that's my long-term brand. I won't be doing running content all the time. I might try to do some type of like Ironman challenge in the future. Maybe try to compete at IWC if I can get to that level of training. But I want to transition away from just always being so focused on like the marathons after this year to just being focused on 50 states. And then that's the brand. Where I'm still doing physical challenges, but the brand that carries on moving forward is like every year I'll take on a 50 states challenge.
Yeah. Did I hear on a previous podcast you talking about dating?
Oh, yeah.
I did my research.
So,
yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, I don't want to give up like too many.
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to if you don't want to,
That, but then as well, I don't want to give up too many details about why I went into that. But basically, like, I've just realized this year that I just really want to build this life with someone. And I've gotten close a couple of times, and there's definitely been some heartache. Going to the next season of life, I know I can't do it alone. And so, I want to have, like, a wife. I want to find someone to build this with. Because I don't think it's worth, like, getting to the end of my life and then just, hey, I've got all these accomplishments, but like,
I want to share it with.
Yeah, I want to share it with someone. So I think that's above all else, like that's the most, that and my relationship with God, that's number one. And then right below that is like finding someone to live life with. Like those are the main priorities right now.
Dude, I love your mission. I heard you talk about you started this last year as a goal that you wanted something to change you. And one of the quotes that you've referred back to is whatever it takes, wherever it takes me.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be able to share your story here on the show here today, kick off the new year 2025 the right way. You talk about sharing it with someone. I drove from Toronto to LA with our old producer. We recorded 40 episodes, ripping through Nashville, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, etc. Like amazing experience. Did LA up to Vancouver, up the coast. We recorded, like I said, probably 50 episodes total. Being able to share it with someone and with others is the greatest experience. I've heard you talk about it. You don't want people to share whatever your page is. You want them to talk about Wyatt Moss and what makes you special and how you're able to enact change. And I think what's been unique for me over the past couple of years talking with individuals like yourself is that everyone has a certain goal in mind or a certain mission. People seem to be, I don't want to say pushing towards, but there seems to be a movement towards God and religion, and there is definitely momentum in that space. Can you tell me about your relationship with God?
Yeah. Well, I think if you want to set up your life to pursue something, that's the start, right? So then, like, I think anything worthwhile, you have a goal in mind, you set out to accomplish it, and then that makes you feel good en route, right? Once you've finished it, I've done this 50 states thing, right? But I'm different as a person. I've changed. But am I striving for anything right now? That's in my mind, like the meaning that you find in life is in pursuit of something, right? And so the greatest meaning that you could pursue is something that's like, we can go through the characteristics. Something that's bigger than yourself, right? It's something that's worthy of, pursuing. And then it's something that's like takes faith, a massive leap of faith to pursue. Because if I knew that I could accomplish this goal, a good buddy of mine is like, if it's a goal you can accomplish, it's just a task on a checklist. It's if you can check it off tomorrow, like you can do that. It's not a goal of yours. A goal has to make it something that makes you pursue it. You're not worthy of it yet. Getting on this journey, pursuing it makes you worthy of that goal. So then if you like add up all these different characteristics, and I don't really have them listed out, but like just this idea of what is the perfect goal to pursue. I think ultimately it would be a relationship with something greater than yourself. Mm-hmm. And so then, pursuing the relationship with your wife is great, but like when, this life is over, what happens after that? I just feel like there's got to be something beyond. And so for me, I believe in, Jesus Christ. When people say like, who is Jesus? Like that's, for me, that's like I got to live my life that way. One day wherever I go, if it's heaven, if it's whatever happens after this life, I have no idea. Right. But when I meet this person, God, this being, whatever this concept is, I'm like, all right, Lord, I've lived out my life to glorify you. How did I do? And then he's like, great job, good and faithful servant. That's all I want. It's like, I've done a good job living out my life trying to glorify God. That's the driving force. And then here's the cool part. It's like, that's the ultimate motivation, right? So I no longer have to wake up and find the motivation for myself. When you have kids, I'm just making an assumption here, but when you have kids, like you have all the motivation in the world to get up because you have human life that's connected to you, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's all these different things that like, oh, if you have a job, there's motivation there, and maybe you get unmotivated, but it's like, well, there's like that, impulse to keep going because it's your life or whatever it is. If you set up your life like trying to find these earthly sources of motivation, I feel like you always fall a little bit short. But if you're always like, all right, Lord, like I'm living for you. This is not for this world. This is for, God and his kingdom. Then there's just an ultimate source of motivation. And then people like, I had to change my, the background on my phone because people would ask me like, why did you take on this challenge? And for me, it's like, this has been a way to strengthen my relationship with God, where it's like, this is a massive undertaking, 22 years old. How am I going to find the strength to do this? How am I going to find the finances? Will I be able to pull it off by myself and edit all the videos or whatever it is? And so people would ask me like, why did you take on this challenge? I wanted a challenge so big that I could become better. And it would always be like me caving down just to say that because I just wanted to pacify the answer. I had to change it to this. Oh, you can't see it.
That's okay.
I wanted a challenge so big, it would only be possible with God. And that stems from like a devotion that my mentor gave me last year in November. It was like, when you don't have the guts to take on a massive endeavor, then you're not opening up the floor to give the glory to God. The 50 States Marathon Challenge was only possible because God's hand was on it. And as long as I'm giving the glory back up to him, opportunities will open up that I never could have foreseen, And that's where the 7 continents thing comes in. Like 3 days after I finished the 50 States Marathon Challenge, this massive undertaking, I'm still trying to figure out how to follow through on it, pay off the debt, everything like that. The door opens to something that I've been wanting to do for the past 3 years. So where the all 50, the 50 brands started back in 2021. I dropped out of college. I wanted something to do as like a source of meeting. So I got 2 of my buddies together, and the 3 of us planned a trip to all 50 states. We did a road trip, 50 states in 50 days. And like, that was just another story of like, just believing in that purpose and like, all right, Lord, I'm just going to take a step into the unknown. But like that whole chain of command led up to doing this 50 States Marathon Challenge. Back then we had the idea for the 7 continents. It literally says it on the Instagram post, if you want to see with all the Polaroid photos on my Instagram. In the description, it's like, next up, 7 continents in 7 days. And that was 3 years ago. And so then to be here, it's like this whole year has just been like a, really like so many obstacles that would get in the way. Who knows how it was possible? There's only one way. It's got to be God putting his hand on this challenge. And then as soon as I finish, the door opens up to this next thing. And not that like that's how God works. Like, oh, you believe in me, I'll give you this. That's not it at all. It's just like I'm just gonna keep moving forward on the path that I think is God's path for me. And as long as I'm taking one step at a time, like, and just believing that, all right, Lord, I have the faith that this is the path that you want me to be on. Teach me your will. All these different things. New doors will open, and I will live a life so great that it couldn't have been me that pulled it off. It had to be God keeping his hand on the trajectory that I took. And that's where I am right now. Like 7 continents is insane. You know, this trip cost $44,000. What are the odds that like the company Ketone IQ that I've been using this whole year, like I reached out to them and 48 hours later, they're like, yeah, we want to sponsor this series because, you know, you're the perfect brand ambassador for Ketone IQ. We're going to drop 44 grand on this trip because we believe in you. You know, there's too much to happen for this to be me. It's got to be God.
Quick little mid-roll ad here for Can I Wellness supplements. If you guys haven't heard or seen me use the products, they have Calm, Sleep, Boost, and Mend. All of these can be used throughout your day. I use the Can I Wellness sleep spray every night when I'm traveling to make sure that my circadian rhythm stays on point. And I've been using the Boost before my hockey games because honestly, it's providing me that little bit of extra focus and clarity so that I can stop more pucks. Let's get back to the episode. So cool to hear, and I love hearing the passion in your voice too. Shout out to Michael Brandt from Ketone IQ. He deserves a little shout out. He sent us some products when I was down in Cape Cod with a bunch of buddies, Dom Fusco, Bobby Ryan, a couple of those other gents, and we were crushing ketones during our runs. I wasn't running much back then. The boys were chirping me about it as the old guy, but they worked and they were fun to use. Different was the first time messing around with ketones, but the only reason I asked the God question is because I'm hearing your content coming up like crazy. Mind Pump Media, Sal DiStefano is a huge advocate for following religion, especially young men who maybe don't have the necessary guidance or, you know, pillars that they're trying to focus on. But then I've also got Michael Smoke from Higher Up Wellness that's right in Atlanta with you, who's also doing courses weekly with other young men. And I'm like, okay, clearly there is a shift in society now to at least being aware of religion, and maybe it comes from the overabundance that we have in society now of just all the extra random stuff. Like I was having this conversation with my mom a couple weeks ago over Christmas, and it's like Christmas used to be the time when you got those gifts that you really needed or that were, you know, practical and that would bring you so much joy because you couldn't get it otherwise. Whereas now it feels like in society we maybe are accustomed to getting everything we want. Amazon, you get an order, it comes within a day or two via Prime, and it's like we don't have delayed gratification anymore, and we don't have that willingness to put in time, effort without seeing that result immediately. I feel like that's consistent with what you just messaged over the past 5 minutes referring to your relationship there.
Yeah, there's definitely a push there because when you have everything in the world, then that's not a good story. Like what I've learned like this past year and a year ago when I right before I decided to take on this challenge, I have to live my life for the story because that's just, you know, the best pursuit is in pursuit of a goal. My life is going to be a story. If I want to live out a great life, I have to treat my life like a story. Well, a good story has obstacles along the way that you overcome. When you have everything and then there's no longer like an opportunity to face risk or go out there and do something in the unknown, then it's no longer a compelling story. So I feel like people are moving towards God because like they're searching for meaning somewhere. And, you know, if they're not willing to go out there and like take on the adventure of a lifetime yet, they're looking for something to give them the confidence to go do that. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, it's like, for me, you know, it's like, all right, Lord, I can't do this by myself, but I'm just going to step out there and, you know, trust that this is what you want me to do with my life. And I constantly pray this prayer. I'm like, all of last year, I was like, all right, Lord, teach me your will for my life. Use me as an instrument for your will. And that was just what I constantly am saying, right? And then this year, the prayer has been, Lord God, teach me to rely on you. And so it makes sense that this whole year, I've been penny pinching to get through this challenge because if, let's say I had a sponsor that paid for the whole thing up front or along the way or whatever it was, would I be relying on God? I'd be robbing the opportunity to trust in him. So then, you know, as I pray these things, like I have to understand that, oh, someone's listening. Like the challenge happened week by week, barely, several different like final last moment things in different categories, financially or like signups for a race like New York City, or catching a flight or whatever it is. Like so many of these last minute things happened in different categories that like, okay, God's teaching me to rely on him in every circumstance. Okay. And then now that I have that down, like, I don't know what's next. I don't know what the prayer is for this year. But yeah, it's interesting to like, that's where the world is moving. I think it's good.
I'll tell you how it's going to finish. One foot in front of the other.
Yeah. One step at a time.
Yeah, man.
If I knew the end, if I knew what was next, like that would take away that opportunity, right? There's a phrase in the Bible where it's like that daily bread. What does that mean? It's not that you're eating food every day. It's that like, okay, every day I'm going to give you, this is God saying this. God's going to give me just enough to get through this next day. Because if I had the next month, then there's no need for God. Oh, I'm good. I'm covered for the next month. I love how this conversation like has turned in, like, thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk through my relationship with God, because it's something that I'm still trying to, work through right now. I have a lot of things up in the unknown, but I have just seen in my life, like, my mom has been praying over me for my whole life because just unfortunate things have happened in my life. I lost my dad when I was 6. She was not a believer. Like growing up she was, and then she turned away. She actually went to college to kind of disprove the faith. She was like looking into different religions and everything like that. And then when she was 40 years old, my dad passed away, and she's like just distraught because this is, her person. Mm-hmm. It was bad for me at 6 years old. It was terrible for her. She just decided that she had to turn to something greater than herself because she couldn't get through that circumstance, losing her husband alone. And so that's where God came in, and like ever since she's been praying over me, and I think that's the only reason why I am the man I am today, is because I'm just clear on things, and I just like I know I've got mom praying over me, and like together we can talk through things. We can actually pray. These things are not weird within our family. It's okay to talk with a being that doesn't exist in the physical world, and it's like what is this whole concept of God? Like we're comfortable talking through that together and like asking questions and not having to have answers, and just I'm so grateful for her. I don't know how we got on that whole thread, but
no, dude, I'm like I said, I'm also grateful for you being able to articulate this, because most 22-year-olds aren't able to expand on their thoughts other than I pray, I go to church once a week, and like there's a reason behind why you're doing this, and I think that's important for others to hear, listen to. Some people, maybe it isn't religion, maybe it's a Misogi, like Jesse Itzler suggests once a year to go after and pursue. Last year, that's the marathon for me. Now it's maybe a 500-pound deadlift, 300-pound bench press, some physical feats. Maybe it's, acquiring some more content here on the Athletes podcast. Maybe we'll contribute, do some in-person series, running marathons down 50 states across the U.S. But for me, I'm like, I see what you've been able to accomplish, especially over this past year. I'm excited for what you have moving forward. What does your Misogi look like? Are you putting those together? Is that the 7 continents, 7 days? Is it a bigger, more grandiose idea?
I mean, for this next year, I would say like maintenance is the name of the game. So my Misogi isn't like a year-long event. There'll be a lot of things that I get to do this year. I'll probably do some type of 50-state series. I'll go to all 7 continents. I'm going to try to run a marathon every day for 7 days during that series. It's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, that'll be crazy. Hey, you're going to be crushing ketones for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, exactly. And then after that, like there's 7 world majors. I'll take on that challenge maybe this year. That's the goal.
Really,
Be up next. But then like all these different achievements, I think like it's easy to always seek like that next challenge. What I want to do is focus my Misogi this year on like the daily maintenance. Can I make sure that I'm building what I'm building? No, can I make sure that I'm proud of what I'm building and the way that I'm building it? Nick Bear said this. He's like, I got hit by a car the other day. If you saw this on his Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I asked myself the question, am I proud of what I'm building? He's like, yes, but I need to be proud of the way that I'm building it. He's got a daughter, and he's, got a wife and all these different things. And Well, he can build whatever it is that he wants to do. He can achieve whatever he wants to do. Sub 240 marathon, 500-pound deadlift, whatever it is. You know, $1 million on the Black Friday sale for BPN, which is crazy. In like 30 minutes, the opening like $1 million in revenue in 30 minutes is just absurd. He can achieve any of these things, but none of it matters if he doesn't have that daily maintenance down. He doesn't get to live his life with his, child and his wife. So then I like the way he sets up his life in that perspective, and I'm going to adopt that this year. All right, am I proud of the way that I'm building it? Well, am I keeping a record of all the lessons that I've learned throughout this whole challenge or this whole year or this whole process? Yes. I started last year doing it once every couple days. I would just record a YouTube video, 10 to 15 minutes long, of like what was going through my mind at that time. Didn't have to be like an update or anything like that. It could just be like me talking with the camera. And so now I get to go back and view myself in the past. I get to relive those moments and like really enjoy it. I'm proud of that, right? Am I proud of like the style of videos that I'm putting out or the amount of effort that I'm putting in? There was a video that I saw that Ryan Holiday posts all the time about Jimmy Carter, the president. He had just passed away, but about how he was getting interviewed when he was, going to college, his first job out of college. The interviewer asked him about all these things that he did, and Jimmy Carter was telling him everything, and he's like, "But did you try your best?" And then Jimmy had to say, "No, I didn't," or didn't answer the question or whatever it was. And the interviewer walked out of the room, and he's haunted. But like that's what I want to be able to say is like, all right, I kept the maintenance items together. I was able to hold my family together while also pursuing this dream. My responses were never rash. I kept a record online, that way I could go back and watch it. And then as well, every single day I tried my best. And as long as I do that, then this next year's great. That's the Misogi. It's like, can I make today the greatest day ever? Because if today is the greatest day ever, it'll be the greatest week ever, the greatest month, the greatest year, the greatest decade, the greatest life. And that's what I want to live.
It's going to be a cool story to be able to share along the way, dude. You giving me chills right now, man. It is like what was it, that last podcast that I was listening to? I got to pull it up here, give them a shout out too, because they did a good job. Life in Stride. They did a fantastic job. They started their episode. They're like, it's 10 out of 10 day, 10 out of 10 morning. It's a great day. Greatest day to be alive. And it's that perspective that we need to be sharing more of out into society. Like the biggest blessing is when you wake up in the morning and you didn't have anyone else around you pass away either, right? Like so grateful to be available and have everything in my body working properly, and then B, everyone around you supporting you still there. That is, once you got that covered, you're pretty Gucci. You've been creating content for 4 years. You ran 50 marathons in only 3 pairs of shoes this past year. We got to get you a shoe sponsor, man. New Balance, like maybe they can hook you up with some stuff. How were you able to accomplish that? And I want to stack this. Were you wearing those same shoes while you were sleeping outside of your Mississippi, sleeping in the car, sleeping outside of your other events? Like, because that's a couple different times you were sleeping on the start line, dude.
Yeah. Missoula, I slept at the start line. That's in Montana. And then Portland, Oregon, it was a double marathon weekend. I slept in the airport. And then I slept in the car 13 times throughout the challenge. Like I literally would drive 5 hours up to northern Michigan, pull into Michigan, whatever university is up there, Northern Michigan University. And like at 3 a.m, get woken up by a cop that's like, hey, you can't sleep in your car in this parking lot. They thought it was like a bomb threat or something, They're like sending their sirens over, and like not sirens like loud, but the lights were on. So I woke up in a haze. So yeah, like I don't know. That was all been pretty crazy. Wearing the shoes, you can kind of see them. There's one pair right there. Oh yeah, the camera might go over that way. Yeah, right there. There's 3 pairs of shoes. The idea behind it is like I only had enough money to spend on the necessary things. Well, these shoes aren't worn through yet. I could probably get a couple more miles out of them. So the first time that I did it, I was like, they're good for 500 miles. I could probably stretch it to 750. And so then, that was the first 18 marathons of the year. And you're not supposed to run more than 1 marathon in a pair of shoes. And I ran 18. I think that's just like an advisory thing because you have ultra runners. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to go out there and run, what, 50 miles as a training run 18 times before what's his name? Um, Andy Glaze had
Yep.
18 or 20 pairs of shoes last year,
Yep.
but he ran like 9,000 miles or something like that, or 5,000, 6,000, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so then he ran like 3 times as many. Maybe I could have gotten like 5 to 10 pairs of shoes throughout the year, but I don't know. Like I was able to pull it off with 3. So
Yeah.
it also goes to show like if I can run a marathon in all 50 states with only 3 pairs of shoes, you have no excuse to get out there with whatever pair of shoes you have on your feet.
Yeah.
The thing is, you just have to get started. I had a pair of shoes that was like so bad. They're over there. Like no support whatsoever. My ankles were just destroyed. And so I had to find like a new pair to start doing marathon training. There is like that side of things. You want to make sure it's the right pair of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you need like Alpha Flies to go sub 3. Some guy did it barefoot in like the 1980s. So like it's possible.
Yeah.
You
That.
need 2 hours 15 minutes. 2 hours 15 minutes barefoot.
Yeah, that's the perspective we need every single morning to wake up with. Be like, man, yo, let's just come to terms with this.
I mean, there's no shortage of excuses, right? But there only needs to be one reason. And so just have one compelling reason to get out of bed in the morning and take today on as like, all right, this is it. That's all you need is like, don't look for all of the motivation or the perfect conditions. Just whatever it takes, pull it off. Whatever it takes and wherever it takes me. But there was another question. 4 years of content. Yeah. I started making content. Like I posted my first TikTok ever when I was in my senior year of high school. And it got 6 million views in like a week. It's like, holy cow. Because I found a glitch in the algorithm where if you like swipe up and down on your video, it got it more views. So I got my mom's phone and my sister's phone. And I sat there for like 2 hours just doing that with both my hands. And then that's what got the first video to go viral. Because 10,000 views that night, and then the next morning at 600,000, I was like, oh my gosh, it actually worked. So like, it's crazy that this whatever happens in this social media career all started from a glitch in the algorithm. If that was the only compelling reason, like early conditions are everything, right? So make sure that you can find some way to succeed at the very beginning, because if that's the only motivation that I had to do content, it just planted a seed. And then I went to college. I tried that route. I was living on a couch for 2 months in a foreign country. I went to school in London because I just applied on a whim. I'm just like that type of guy that's, I'm just going to, why not? I'm just going to apply to this and see what happens. It was actually less expensive than the school that I wanted to go to in the US. I was like, okay, I'm going to go over there for school. Incredible life experience. I was there for 2 months, living on a couch. Shout out to my buddy Jack for letting me stay on his couch for way too long while I was trying to find roommates. And then I flew back home and dropped out of college because I just absolutely failed out. Even though I would like to say I'm a smart guy.
Yeah, can confirm.
Yeah, thank you. And so then the seed that was planted a year earlier came back. It was November, a year after this video did really well. I was back home, and my buddies who never went to college were down in Athens, and I was like, all right, y'all, like, let's link up. Like, let's just do something, And so the idea was just like to get started with social media. Now that took forever to get to where we are today, and there were like 100 videos, literally 100 videos that we filmed that never got posted, that I edited and everything like that. Just maybe probably like 90% of them I didn't even begin to edit them. I just like set up the whole video process, filmed it, paid for everything, and then never edited or posted it. So then you could argue that like this could have happened 3 years ago if I actually would stay on top of the content. And the name of the game this year was like, all right, if I run a marathon every single week, that's an impressive achievement. It gives me enough time to put out content every single week. Mm-hmm. 1 or 2 videos a week. People will like the story. I had no intention of it, reaching the heights that it has. But just the honest effort of showing up every week and then learning from that. Because it's easy to like, I saw this one guy had posted a video every day about him running and hadn't seen the growth that he was looking for. But, you got to keep in mind that the barrier to entry to post a video of you running is low, mm-hmm. right? People want to see something that's very high barrier to entry because there's unlimited content out there. So for this piece of content to be worthwhile for me to watch, I want it to be a super compelling hook. And then after that, I want you to be really good at storytelling, really good audio. The editing's good. Visual, very good shots, like visually. and all these things together, that takes 4 years, 5 years. Most people just aren't willing to learn every single small lesson along the way to get to that spot. But once you do that, you can have that overnight explosion.
Got to embrace the suck sometimes,
Exactly. Yeah.
It's again, that delayed gratification, not something that everyone in our day or our generation is accustomed to. But running provides you with that discipline that I don't know if there's any other form of exercise that gives that same kind of result. I don't know. It's because the barriers to entry, like you just throw on a pair of shoes and you go. Like you don't have to jump in a pool, swim. You don't have to go find weights. You don't have to go find your plyometric bar, or whatever, like bike, that's what I love about it. And you don't need a $300 pair of Alpha Flies to get started either. You can literally, I run in my Vivo barefoot shoes. I will run in runners, whatever, right? You can do it all. Maybe not running a marathon in those barefoots, but there's the ability to do so, and maybe that's a challenge. We should do one barefoot. Wyatt, would you do that?
I've seen about 5 people this year running barefoot for a marathon.
Okay,
which is just wild. I don't know.
Is it hygienic? Hygienic? I don't know.
Well, I mean, the thing I'm worried about is is it going to wear through the bottom of your sole, the bottom of your foot? I think a lot of people will put like a sticker on the bottom of their foot, and so it's kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it keeps their feet protected from the pavement.
Yeah, just some type of surface.
Yeah, my feet, I was robbed at birth. I'm 6. I'm very grateful that I'm 6 feet tall, right? But I wear a size 15 shoe.
Dang.
Day to day.
You got flippers, eh?
That's what I'm saying, and so I should be 7 feet tall, but I'm not necessarily sad about that. But anyways, my feet, I have fallen arches because my feet are so big. So I have to, maybe it's not because of that. Maybe it's just because of inadequate training. I don't want to put a reason to it without actually studying the cause. But that's the problem that I'm facing going into this 7 continents is I got to figure out how to tape my feet and get soles and the correct shoes because my ankles have been hurting this whole year. After, I'll run one marathon, I'll be fine. But then I'll run another one and that's when it starts hurting. The fastest ones I've run have definitely been after I get a new pair of shoes. So that is a fair point that maybe I should have been switching them out more often.
I was very grateful. New Balance hooked me up with some gear over the past few months when I was preparing for the marathon, and I could tell the difference once you throw on a nice new pair of shoes. It makes and a wide foot for me. I've got wide feet, so that was a big one. I don't have size 15 feet. That'll make the dating show really cool, but that's. I'm definitely in need of just diversifying the athletic abilities, right? Like running for me over the past year was big. Now it's trying to add a bit more size, but I'm also playing a ton of hockey. I'm playing golf. There's layers to what you've done and been able to do with your stories that I'm now thinking, how am I going to add that to my content creation journey, what I'm going to be doing next, pursuits. And I can't think of someone who does it in a more positive manner than you do on social too, which I really appreciate. Can you tell me what it was like doing it with your grandmother in Hawaii?
Pushing her in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
The final. I mean, I wish I could have pushed her for the entire race.
Yeah.
I definitely looking for some type of race where I get to do that. Right now she does have the flu, so wouldn't be anytime soon. We got to make sure that Nana's healthy and doesn't get too cold. That was one of the reasons why we decided in the end to not push her for the entire race. Was that I couldn't find a wheelchair in Hawaii that would be one suited to push her for the entire thing. Mm-hmm. But Mom and I we went to Lowe's and we were finding this cart, and then we went to Walmart. We had this this seat that you would put in the car, like a car seat. Together those two things and a drill, we were going to make this thing that we could pull Nana for the entire race. And then the final thing that came into my mind is what if she gets dehydrated? This could actually be very unhealthy for Nana to go out there and do. It's got to be an overcast day where it's not too cold to be able to pull her because she's 91, right? So then, but nonetheless, she was able to wait at the start line for the final hour of the race, get to see everyone running by, and then I got to push her for that last half mile, which was incredible, and I was just sobbing at that point. The whole marathon, I got to run with some friends of mine, Isabel, Lexi, and then Lizzie. All 3 of them are running content creators over in Utah. And so then that was incredible. That last like 30 minutes as I'm running through those final like 2 or 3 miles, and then the final like 5 minutes pushing Nana, just absolutely sobbing. Um, but I think it was a great, end to the challenge, and that was the goal ultimately, was to bring her to Hawaii. She had been to 49 states throughout her lifetime, so reaching number 50 for the Honolulu, getting to cross the finish line with me for my 50th marathon, I think that made the whole challenge so much more special, or whatever the word that I'm looking for is, so much more incredible. So I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to do that.
The other thing you mentioned there is the variables at play. And like, I'm so glad you got that opportunity. I know it wasn't the full 26 miles but that you were looking for, but nonetheless, the effort was there. She probably appreciated it as much as that full one and didn't have to go through 5 hours of misery, whatever that would have been. But I think that, your ability to connect with people and make sure that they know you're doing it for your purpose. Like, I think it's important also just to highlight, you went into debt doing this. You took out a loan. I know you don't want to talk about it too much because there was, yeah.
I just don't want to encourage people to do that when they don't have the 4 years building up to that. Because like, it was a very big risk to go into debt. I went into debt at the start of the year, because I was like, all right, I have these first 6 months, like, I don't know how I'm gonna make money, but I need to get started now. And so then, instead of waiting till the end of the year, which would have been smarter, I was like, all right, I'll just go into debt now. Well, then, come July, I ran out of money and I was over indexed on debt. So I was not able to, go into more debt to pull off the challenge. And that's where I was like, okay, like, let me bootstrap this rest of this challenge, because the original plan with woodworking, didn't work out as well as I thought it would have. So, yeah.
Dude, I think it's a testament to you just figuring out you find a way to make it work, right?
Whatever it takes and wherever it takes me.
Most memorable marathon. And I add some context because I did a Spartan race up on Big White Mountain here in BC. It was pouring rain. The only time it stopped raining was when it was snowing and hailing and like miserable going. Part of the race was running up the ski lift, which I've heard you talk about on some of your previous ones. So like, I'd love to hear your craziest marathon experience over these 50.
Craziest experience over the 50? I would say the one in New Mexico, because I flew into Denver, about 4 hour, 5 hour drive north of where the marathon was supposed to be, at midnight. And so I had to drive from midnight until 7 in the morning, right before the race started, because I was sleeping along the way in my car, the rental car. That was crazy because we started out the race in New Mexico. It was a trail marathon at a ski resort over the summer. So, and there were like, a couple, whatchamacallits, like aid stations, maybe like 5 throughout the entire thing, but not like it was a very big race. I think there was like 100 people or less running. So that was crazy because we started out and it went straight uphill. In the first mile, we're like going up this mountain. I think it had like 4,000, 5,000 feet of elevation gain over the course of the entire thing, which that's crazy. Most marathons are like 500 to 800 feet of elevation gain. And so by the time that I made it to this, mile 24, my ankles started hurting because like that started flaring up. That was over the summer when the Achilles was really hurt. I actually had to take my shoe off and put it in my foot into the like ice cold, river that was like right there, just because it hurt so bad. And so I was like limping through to mile 25, and then I get there to the aid station, or whatever it was, 24, 25, and they're like, yeah, the final stretch is up this portion right here. And so I look up, it's a ski lift, and like there's no one running. People are just like hiking up this, like sludging up this mountain, one step at a time. So the sun is beating down. And it's just so hot outside, and like it literally felt like Mount Everest. And yeah, that was the most difficult marathon of the entire year, like the wildest experience, because it turned out to be like 27 or 28 miles. So you get to mile 26 and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm still on top of this mountain. I have to go run down it to get the finishing medal. And the medal was just like a little piece of wood on like a cord. It wasn't anything crazy, but that was a lot of fun. So
our Spartan race was super similar. Ended up being a couple kilometers longer than the originally anticipated half marathon. And you want to know to boot, what was worse? You at least got a medal. We didn't even get our
Oh
medals.
no.
There were people dropping out from hypothermia. It was crazy. It was wild. But again, you're stronger after those experiences as long as you survive them. It's like you can't literally give yourself any more adversity. And like manufacturing adversity, I think, is something that you talked about kids. Like I'm almost feeling like when I have kids, I'm going to have to manufacture that adversity for them. And that's what I'm trying to do now, even like going through my 20s. It's you need to manufacture that adversity, even though, we're going through that. We're both living with our parents. It is what it is. But there's external ways you can manufacture that as well to make life maybe not so comfortable because, as we talked about earlier, comfort can be a little scary.
It also, when you create adversity or obstacles to overcome, it opens up the mind to form the creative circuits. So then, that's a really valuable thing that you can give your children because now they become, more dynamic thinkers when they're older, better communicators, problem solvers. And who wouldn't want that for their children? But the difficult part is like, you want the skills, you got to put them through the obstacles that will form those skills. And most people are too helicopter parent to want to go through that. You just have to have the guts to put your kids through those difficult challenges.
The amount of confidence that comes from running a marathon, like the work that's put in and then afterwards, I can't even describe how much more confident I was as a human being. I can't even imagine what you feel like after doing 50 in a year. Was there anything that you did during those marathons or prior to? Were you listening to reading books, podcasts to get inspiration, to stay motivated? Was there anything like that? Like for me, I listened to The Confident Mind by Nate Zinsser. I was driving across Canada from Montreal to Calgary half marathon. That book was amazing. Obviously, David Goggins, never heard. I know you've got his cell phone. We won't make you call him right now, but there's certain things that people use as fuel. Was there something for you? And maybe we'll talk about nutrition afterwards, but like fuel from a motivation podcast, book standpoint, what were you doing?
I talk about this a little bit in the documentary that'll be coming out soon. It's taking us a while to edit it just because it's me and Becca who just had a baby. So like that's the producer and the filmer and everything like that. Editor is Becca and she's just this incredible one. But anyways, in the documentary we talk through how like the motivation for me was that I set my life up to do content, right? Social media, and up until this point, I had not succeeded yet. And so for me to not succeed at the 50 States Marathon Challenge meant that I failed at the one thing that I've set my life up to do. And so that was all the motivation I needed. I was like, the dream is no longer a dream or a desire. This is an absolute necessity. In 2024, if I don't run a marathon in all 50 states, then I've failed at the one thing that I've set my life up to do. And that was the only motivation I needed. So no music. There were definitely times where I was, on the ground right here, just staring up at the ceiling, and I'd call my buddy, be like, dude, my life sucks. Because, I got to go run a marathon next weekend in like North Dakota, middle of nowhere, with no money in my bank account the entire year. I'm definitely don't have enough food, and my Achilles hurts so bad. The videos aren't performing yet because it took 35 marathons to get to 10,000 followers. I started the year out with like 1,600. So, from 1,600 to 110,000 in 1 year was crazy. But it took 7 months of running every single week and not posting videos, and then finally having to get out there and post videos for like the one in Omaha to do well, to kind of kickstart that whole process of like, okay, I actually believe in this content. 15 marathons left. It's pretty interesting. Those daily recordings that I told you about, 10 to 15 minute videos that I make, I started doing those in October of 2023, and you can kind of see like the physical change in myself as well as like the mental change, everything like that. I had like a full beard in 2023, shaved it off, and then like that whole process was really cool to see. But there's one video that I made over the summer when it was at the spot where I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to pull this off. My Achilles is just shot. If I try to run another marathon next weekend, I'm gonna tear my Achilles. And then I have no money left in my bank account, all these different things. And I had to make the decision at that point over the summer that no matter what happens to me over the next 6 months, I have to find a way to pull off the challenge because this is everything I've set up my life to do. So I made a video. I was like, all right, y'all, I've made that commitment. And now you get to see over the next couple of months that I'll follow through on that. So far this year, 5 or so people have, said, hey, it's Wyatt Moss at a marathon. But But what if 10 people per marathon were saying that? And it's cool to see. That was July of this 2024, so last year. It's cool to see that 6 months later, when I was running Philly, number 48, that like 100 people recognized me throughout the race. So yeah, it's just crazy what can happen in a year when you just commit relentlessly to this idea that you have and, see what happens. Like just give up everything.
You proved it, yeah, dude, and it's again a testament to just you committing 100%. And I don't want to say I'm jealous because I'm going to be following along the journey and we're going to be participating together. But I'm definitely admiring what you've been able to accomplish. It's pretty incredible. I've got to ask though, from your nutrition standpoint, like were you crushing ribs during every race or just ribs and ketone IQ? Hey, what a combo!
What a combo! I haven't had a ton of gels or anything like that during the race. Like, I don't think I've ever had like a proper nutrition during a marathon this year. I've had like, what would proper nutrition look like? You wake up, you have breakfast, right? You have carbs, simple sugars, like toast with jam on it, and then a little bit of protein. And then going into the race every 36 minutes or whatever it is, you have a gel. And then I take a ketone at the start, ketone at halfway through, whatever it is. Like that's proper nutrition. Most of the marathons, I was waking up about 30 minutes before the start, running over to the start line, having not yet showered, throwing my bag into the bag check, hopping in with like, putting my marathon bib on because I literally just picked it up 5 minutes ago. And then like I had 3 gels in my pocket, down to ketone and like forget about the gels. I think probably over 10 marathons this year, I had less than 100 or 200 calories of sustenance the entire time. So I think, definitely did not fuel how I should have this year. But the ribs was pretty good.
Mind over matter. That's the first time your body had fuel. I was like, holy crap, this is actually easy doing this when I actually have food in my system. Dude, that's wild. I had my buddy Liam Redmond giving me some suggestions like carb loading 500, 600, 700 grams of carbs a couple days before. Again, I was trying to go for that sub 4 mark, not just finishing, but man, I could not imagine doing it without fueling properly now. Just knowing how much it impacts leading up to it, that was one of the things that was eye-opening for me for sure. But I also consumed a ton of Perfect Sports protein powder, which was like a game changer. I was on the road for the month when I did my marathon too, similar to you. I was sleeping in Walmart parking lots in my co-founder's RV. It was a converted school bus. So I was riding in style for a month. It was pretty great, can't lie. Didn't create as much content as I should have. But you know what? It was a test run, and I think, I've taken inspiration from you, and 2025 is going to be, we're going to incorporate some cool stuff. But I also have this 60-second Stark show that I've been trying to start up. I did it with Mitchell Pelkey back like when we were on the Cape Cod. Just got a list of and/or questions here for you to wrap up the show before we end off with our biggest piece of advice for the next generation of athletes. So I'm going to just kick them. You ready? Quick answer. You can elaborate if you want, but I feel like some of these are going to be straightforward given the cardio individual that you are, but maybe we'll learn a bit more about Wyatt Moss here during this 60-second Stark show. Here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's ride. Cardio or strength training?
Cardio.
Running or cycling?
Cycling.
Yoga or Pilates?
I've actually never done either.
Fair enough. We'll pass. CrossFit or bodybuilding?
Honestly, never done either of those.
That's okay. Well, maybe we'll do a training session together. Swimming or rowing?
Definitely rowing. I used to be a rower. That's how I got the strength for the 50 States Challenge.
No wonder he's got such a big back. High intensity interval training or circuit training?
High intensity.
Indoor or outdoor workout?
Ooh, I would say outdoor. I don't like the air conditioning when I'm sweating.
Yeah, overrated. Protein shake or pre-workout?
Protein shake. I've never taken pre-workout.
Yeah, overrated. Just all you need is a little salt anyways. But Altered State will really get you going if you need it from Perfect Sports. But we got to get you some diesel protein as well. Maybe I'll hook you up, send you some. Are you a BPN athlete? Maybe I can't do that, but
I mean, I haven't talked with them yet.
So. Okay, well, we'll hook you up in the meantime until they recognize what you got going on. I'll get Perfect Sports on that. Okay, next, deadlifts or squats?
Ooh, squat.
Yeah, runner. You got to get those quads going. 1 mile or 5K?
5K. The 1 mile was so tough. I ran a 5:40, like 48 or something like that.
Sub 6 is legit.
it was hard. That was the day before I ran Honolulu, number 50.
Of course it was. Why wouldn't you, do your PR before a marathon? Makes total sense. Treadmill or elliptical?
I've never ran on an elliptical, so treadmill.
Perfect. Keep it that way. Morning workout or evening workout?
I need to be a more morning person, but I would say evening workout. Probably let's see, day 435 or whatever it is of running a mile every day. I just stopped keeping track. At least 2/3 of the 1 mile every day that I've run have been after 10 p.m.
Damn.
So terrible for your health, really bad for waking up on time. But usually it's 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever it is. And I'm like, oh no, I have to go run a mile. And so I just go outside, run my mile, and then come back in. And I'll sometimes I won't even shower. I'll just fall asleep.
Are you documenting those too?
Yeah, I am. It's gotten to the point though where it's so much content to keep track of that it would be great to post it somewhere, but at the same time, there's just too many things going on, so I'm not worried about it.
He's a busy man. Body weight exercises or free weights?
Ooh, I mean, I don't even work out. I need to. I've been to the gym maybe 5 times, 10 times this year.
All right.
Upper body.
There is definitely benefit to strength training in addition to running. However, you've been doing a lot of running, so I'll give you a pass on 2024, but I think 2025, my one piece of advice would be to get a little bit more. Yeah. Fucking good. Yeah. No, I think there's benefit. That was what helped me, honestly. The last 10 kilometers of that marathon in Toronto, there were people falling left, right, and center. Legs were shaking, knees weak, arms heavy, mom spaghetti. It was crazy. But that was what, honestly, I feel allowed me to keep going, is I did have strength as a hockey goalie. Growing up, I had leg strength I could rely on, and it was that was the only reason my body didn't shut down.
Yeah, 2025 is the year of getting big. That's for sure.
So he's gonna look like C-Bum in 6 months. You heard it here first. Okay, beach workout or mountain hike?
Mountain hike.
Wall sit or plank?
Wall sit.
Push-ups or sit-ups?
Ooh, push-ups. I hate sit-ups.
Squats or lunges now?
I mean, squats. Lunges are really difficult too. So,
rest day or active recovery?
Active recovery.
Love it. Hey, Wyatt Moss, that was the 60-second Stark Show. It might have gone a little longer, but we'll chop it up and we'll make it happen. This is the 250th episode of the Athletes Podcast. I'm a huge fan of your mindset, energy, everything you bring to the table. I'm honored to be able to bring you on the show. First of many conversations, hopefully future collaborations in the works for sure. But the way we wrap up every episode, Wyatt, is we ask our guests their biggest piece of advice for the next generation of athletes. And I would love to be able to share yours with our guests, with our listeners, no more than whatever you got prepared for us now today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on for 250. That's a huge accomplishment, and as well, a great compliment to me that I'd be worthy of that episode. So thank you. Piece of advice for upcoming athletes. I think it all starts with what's in your brain. So what's the story that you tell yourself about who you are? Because if you don't have a compelling story about yourself, then how are you going to be able to put in the hours to train? When everyone goes home and you want to be better, but you follow them home, you don't have that compelling story that keeps you on the field. And so you need to write that compelling story, or else, life will get ahead of you. You'll, graduate and you won't have pursued the dream that you have as best that you could have. And so then if you want to have that pursuit, you want to have the best effort, you want to be able to answer that question well of did you try your best? Yes. You need to change that story that you tell yourself about who you are, make it a compelling story. I am Wyatt Moss. I can run a marathon in all 50 states in 2024. And then you need to tell yourself that, because that is who you will become.
Our goal with the Athletes Podcast is to educate, entertain, and inspire the next generation of athletes. Wyatt Moss, you have done this today. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Sincerely, look forward to keeping in touch, man.
Thank you for having me on. It's been huge.
Thank you, folks, for tuning in to the 250th episode of the Athletes Podcast. As you folks know, this is not free. In return for watching, consuming our content, I need you to hit the subscribe button wherever you're consuming, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. I sincerely would appreciate you hitting the subscribe button and making sure that you share this with someone who might benefit from this episode, whether it's with Wyatt or another individual who we've had over the past 5 years. I am here to educate, entertain, and inspire that next generation of athletes, and I appreciate you being along for the ride. We couldn't do it without you. That's part of our athlete agreement. I want to thank our partners at Perfect Sports for powering the Athletes podcast and for you to continue on this journey. Can't wait to see you again next week. Hope your 2025 is off to a great start. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.